Okay. We'll call to order. Roll call.
Tom Sims.
Ben Henderson.
Mike Drury.
Julie Chudnow.
Okay, we have a quorum. The first item is to review the minutes from the 4/11 meeting. Pretty short minutes, shouldn't take long. Mr. Dolly, you even have time to catch up with us. These minutes are so long. I'm going to extend roll call just to get everybody, since we have a loaded boat here. So go ahead, Justin and
Scott Fairman.
Justin Dolly.
all right, thanks. All right, now we're back to reviewing the minutes for the last meeting, for the April meeting. Those who've already reviewed it, do you have any comments?
If there's no comments, I make a motion that the minutes be approved as written.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is the financials. Jeff, do you want to go ahead and kind of run through the financials?
These are the financials year-to-date as of May 2019. I want to point out that your year-to-date actual on sales tax is about $125,000. The budget's only $140,000. So I think next month we'll actually reach the budget, which will leave 2 extra months that will be coming in as sales tax over budget, probably around $30,000. The expenditures this last month was the administrative fee for myself and the city secretary, legal fees of $2,628 and $43,649 of capital expenditures. That consisted of the computers bought for the police department and also the security cameras and security system for Voight Center. Other than that, year to date, it's a negative $40,000, but versus revenue and expenditures, but that's fine because you have a large fund balance, and of course the cash and the frost is about $13,800 right now, and there's over $500,000 in the tax pool part of the fund. So any questions or anything?
I had a question about the landscape invoice that we discussed last month.
It's paid.
Okay. What took so long on that?
You know, what happened was it took long going through the system and stuff because, and I looked at it, really there's 2 of them. One was a draft, and the draft evidently was upfront money, you know, for the amount they wanted to begin with, $10,000, and I guess that was never paid because they didn't ask for it or whatever, but I finally got the invoice, and my fault, I asked them for a W-9. They sent me a W-9, okay, I'm sorry. And I attached it to the invoices, but the invoice is on back, so the W-9 was put in the W-9 file, and that's why I missed it. So when you called me, I actually called them and apologized to them and told them, and we're required to pay interest on something that's like that anyway as a city, so they were paid that plus the interest.
Okay. Well, thank you, because we kind of were going to try to draw on them on other projects, but it could be a little bit of an issue if it takes us a year to pay. So, but thanks for handling that. So this the sales tax number, then we're going to have 30,000 more in
Approximately
by the end of the year. You think that we weren't expecting?
It may be even more than that. You know, it depends on what it is. It was lower last month, and it was huge the previous 2 months to that. And this time it's down to around 60,000 or 122,000 overall, when it was like 142 2 months ago. So you can't really tell, but in the summer it's when a lot of people actually go out and do purchases and stuff. So I think it'll be about $30,000 you'll have above your budget for sales tax.
Very good. Any comments on the financials? last question I had, is there any outstanding tickets that you see coming through that are still pending on the financials?
No.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on the financials?
Motion to approve the May 2019 financials as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the next item is citizen participation. Is there anyone, we don't have anyone signed up? What's that?
Is it for anything or just what y'all discussed?
Well, it's if anyone signed up for participation. Oh, just on anything. I mean, you can, go ahead.
Ben, the way I understand, you were the one that worked with the Purple Garlic Group.
Yes.
I want to say thank you very much. A lot of people are really excited and
Yeah.
we're anxious to get them here so we can go out to eat and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do? Did you know them or how did you bring them aboard?
Yeah, I've known the owner for several years, and about 2 years ago, he and I talked about finding some space on the north side here for him. He currently has an operation on Austin Highway.
Yes, that's where I go.
Yeah, that's a nice place, but it's a little bit far from his home, which he lives on the extreme north side, even north of here. And he just likes this area, and he formerly had a location at Thousand Oaks and McAllister Freeway here, smaller footprint, but nevertheless he enjoyed doing business up here. So we looked from about, I'd say, Bulverde all the way west to Blanco, and as far out as TPC Parkway, and into Brook Hollow. That was our zone to find a spot. And we searched for quite some time, and then it kind of slowed down. But when the bagel factory vacated, I thought, well, gee, this might be a spot for him. And so we met for coffee one day at the Starbucks, and then we walked across the lot, looked in the windows, and it just kind of progressed from there. It took about 6 or 8 visits to walk through and just see what it was like, and then a lot of negotiating with the landlord, to divide that space because it was two sides to the bagel factory. So he ended up not taking all of it, but about 2/3 of it, I would say, between a half and 2/3.
Anderson, may I interrupt just a second? Technically, we're not supposed to respond to citizens to be heard except for a short, plain statement of fact or policy.
Oh,
She asked a question.
well, I apologize for going on too long.
That's okay.
That was a short.
Yeah. So, stop now.
Good work, Ben.
All right, is there any more citizen comment? Yeah, thank you, Ben, for giving us an update on that. Okay. All right, we'll move to old business update and discuss Hollywood Park EDC project list. We were getting the list updated, and there was kind of quasi-prioritized from the last meeting, and that should be in here. What we really need to do is identify projects that we might really want to now take on and start really working on. So, we're finally to that point. What's that? Let me see where we are. Yeah, go ahead if you want to.
Yes.
You gotta turn on the mic.
Wait. So I have your wish list and lots of great things on there. Thank you all so much for coming up with all that. I just had a couple of comments on some of them. I think they improve acoustics in Voight Center. That's number 6. I think that should be a high priority. I think especially if we're looking at raising the rates for non-residents. I think that's a real important one. And number 18, install large shade and picnic pavilion at Triangle Park. I think we need something like that. I don't know if it necessarily has to be, like a big pavilion or something, but if you've been to some of the functions we've had there recently, is pretty hot, and so I think we do need some, like full-time shade structures there. The Voight pool fence, if that's what we're talking about, what y'all talked about before, if that's enclosing the pavilion, I'm not going to be in favor of that. I won't vote for that. And then the number 20, the Voight Park porch improvements and stuff, for me, that would be a low priority. But other than that, I think there's some really great things on here. So thank y'all.
Can I respond to her?
This is a discussion item, so when it's posted, so yes, you can respond.
We're working on the audio system, issues at the Voight Center
We are.
right now,
Awesome.
okay? We had a meeting this afternoon, and we're going to move forward with some proposals. So stand by.
It's actually on the agenda for this evening, but it's being moved. There's some action that needs to happen really before it's going to get pushed, but it's happening.
Okay. I get lots of complaints.
Yeah.
And also, the last meeting we had, I kind of nixed the idea of poop stations for dogs. I'd like to put that back on the list. I've talked with several people that out walking dogs, and there's a lot of people out there that would like to see that. So I'd like to put it back on the list. I don't want one in my front yard, but I think I'd want to discuss putting one on my corner.
Other people's front yards.
Your neighbor's front yard, yeah.
Someone else's front yard.
Went up by the streetlights, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got a hole by the streetlights.
Okay, can I, on your list here, on number 16, I would not vote for that if it comes to council.
You go to the mic, ma'am.
Okay, number 16, number 20, number 21, number 24.
Can you see what those are?
Yeah, hold on a second. And number 27. If it came to council right now, I would vote no. It's all about the Voight Center.
All right, any more citizen comment? How about any board comment?
Well, I would just comment.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, just real quick. I spaced out a little bit. I think we have 3 council members in the.
Oh, there's a post. It's been posted.
Is it posted as a
It's posted
potential
every month.
quorum?
Yeah, every month.
Okay, I didn't see it on this agenda. Is it posted
Apparently it's
outside?
outside.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's been an ongoing thing since,
Well, if it's routine,
Right.
that doesn't mean everybody did it, especially since Janice isn't here today. I just want to
Oh, I
make sure
checked
that.
with her today.
Okay.
I called her.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. I just want to make sure we're legal.
Okay. Posted that EDC members could attend council meetings as well. Are we doing that?
The way that posting works, if that's the posting you're talking about, it basically, for council meetings, it says any members of its boards or commissions could potentially attend, and that could be a potential quorum. And so, as long as the posting is there, then you can attend their meetings, and then the councils can attend your meetings, but it has to be posted.
So there's now a general posting for every meeting that's set up that way? Are we doing it as an every meeting? Is it being posted for every meeting?
Jenna says she posts it every month.
Okay, so it's no longer an issue then?
No, the issue then comes if Janice were here, what would be going on is with 3 of you here, she would actually make a note that they would be adopting whatever minutes you adopted, because technically it's a cross-minute record, but she's not here, so we just need to make sure we carry forward with that on the council side.
It's being recorded.
That's not an EDC problem, but it's a council problem. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
So you're gonna go with our minutes, this is nice. All right, any comments from the board on the list?
I think we should assign them out. Not all of them, but maybe pick a couple top priorities and make teams around them.
Well, and to the point of priority, some of these are low priority that we've just heard comments about, and something lower, it may sit on this list for a long time before we get to really considering it, and before this board takes action to go forward with any of those ideas, and then even if this EDC did go forward with it. Some of the expenditures could be less than $10,000, and so it would never really go to the council to be voted upon. And it's just something to keep in mind that these could be fairly minimal expenditures, and they could be far out in the future if they're low priority. Because I think we ought to get to the high priority items first.
So here, a question I have is if we have this list that we jointly establish at a workshop, and what happens is almost every month, the city puts on our agenda things that they want to see happen. And this month, there's some things on there, you'll skip your name. But they're not really on our list. How do we address those things? Do they have to be on this list? Is this the only things we're going to support? Or do we just support anything that walks in the door like it's been?
Well, I think items need to come to you as a suggestion, and then in fact, as our agenda is formatted each month, we have as the very last item future resolutions or future agenda items, and so we can openly talk about that at that point, and then work with council or work with you to make suggestions for the coming month.
Like an example is the mayor approached me this month that he wanted to put on the agenda the EDC fund the liquor license for the restaurant over here. Well, my reply to him is we'll support anything like building permits, but don't ask a public entity to support a liquor license.
No.
It's just too controversial.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that idea.
And
That's
it's only a few $100s, but I'm kind of like, ask for anything else, and it'll get discussed and probably supported, but not a liquor license. And he's kind of like, you're making too big a deal of this. I said, I'm not making a big deal. I said, you bring it forward, put it on the list, But I'm not going to be endorsing it. And so
yeah, I can see why you wouldn't. Not everybody
I put
consumes
in my note to
alcohol.
him, I said, I will probably buy as much beer and wine as any customer of theirs. I'm just not asking public money to support with children in this community that we're going to support a liquor license. That's my opinion.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's just an example. So do we, excuse me, it's not on our list.
And maybe to follow up Julie's idea is, if a single individual were assigned out for each one of these, then that person has some homework to do to kind of estimate the cost and think about the scope of the work of a project, and working with council to actually draft a proposed project that comes forth as a more incubated type of idea, rather than just having this list and having the council members feel like they have to react so soon.
And I don't even think we assign someone to each item. I think we decide which 2 or 3 do we want to focus on for the short term so that we can make progress.
Yeah.
And to your question, Mike, I don't think we ignore stuff that's not on the list. I think we need to take things in stride, but know that we have strategic priorities, and by focusing on those, that's how we're trying to make improvements.
And there's probably, if I looked at this list and if I went down, I wouldn't vote for everything on the list either. But, I'm not ready to say what it is. I don't even know what it'll cost or how. What I want to see, I think, is the effectiveness of every project. Is it really doing the city good? Is it doing our businesses good? and creating that circular pattern of getting more revenues coming in to the finance department, and then we then have more money to spend on projects in the city.
Okay, so why don't we try this?
I'll take on the Voice Center acoustical issues along with Kelly.
I'd like to think about it, but I would like to take on one or two of these. I don't know how much longer I'll be on the EDC board, for that matter. When does my term expire? October? September? I could be a short timer.
That makes
The one that's important to me, and I don't have the bandwidth just right now, but it's the business outreach. I know that we have phone numbers for the businesses, but I think there's got to be some central database where we get emails and just better contact information so that we can start really analyzing who is in the city, and so that we can then look at whatever numbers are available from finance about tax revenues.
And I agree that that's a really important one. I'm not sure it would require a ton of bandwidth because Janice supposedly has a lot of that information. I think it's just a function of sitting down with her and communicating and finding out what she has, and then you can assess how much work's involved. But if you have an aptitude towards the kind of the technical aspects also, it may be a no big deal process. So I may be wrong, but it's worth at least having a meeting with the city to determine.
Good point. Yeah.
So would you take that on as an initial possibility?
Yeah, so I'll reach out to Janice and set a meeting with her. For number 2, business outreach, first steps of establishing a database with multiple communication methods, more than phone number and address.
Anyone else?
Mike, I don't know that I have one that's particularly high priority for me, but if as a group we decide there's another one or two that we want to focus on, I'm happy to help.
Okay.
It seems like we've only got 3 here, that others that we've labeled as high, right? So if you look at the ones that are we assigned high priority to.
Yeah, and I would say personally, I think that I'm not sure that the restrooms at Triangle Park, I would consider that a super high priority. I mean, I know there's some people that think it's important. I don't think, for the cost it's going to take, I don't think it's as important as other things in our city. So I would, last time I'm not sure how that one got to be high, but that's where it is. So, but
I think we combined a couple though. We had when we were paring down this list, we had several related to Triangle Park, right?
Yeah. I think the shade one's been brought up a lot of times. I think shade at Triangle Park's important, but I'm not sure the cost of putting a septic system at Triangle Park is there. If we want to have Kelly run the math on that and see what that really looks like.
I've actually got a couple companies working on some proposals for a septic system down there.
Okay.
They haven't responded or haven't got back to me with their numbers yet. This time of the year, it's catch can right now.
So really, that whole number 5, I mean, Kelly could run with that and come to us with something on that. I'm not sure that takes a lot of team time up here. If you want to handle it that way. the security at the main entrances, I thought we already had a proposal on that. The security at the main entrance, didn't we, Kelly? Didn't the police chief and the, and Matt Green, they had something with the, I mean, he brought it to the workshop, you know, with all this
like I said,
information.
Chief had been working on something with the city for the cameras, also being able to tie in the building security, all package deal, but where that stood.
But there was a whole license plate capture thing that he was all talking about and stuff. So I think that, you know,
A lot of this,
we
a
just
lot of the
need to.
items you have on here, some steps have been done. I mean,
Yeah.
the bunker gear for Chief Patrico.
Yeah.
I know he's got all the numbers ready for it. He just doesn't know where to go from here.
Could you pull up what the? I mean, I'm not trying to load you up, but as Public Works, can you find out where that stands? Where the camera systems
I
stand?
can talk to Chief Pritchard.
Yeah.
That was his
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, but it's within the public work realm of the city, right? I mean, you would be the person within the city coordinating
It's
that.
more of a security thing because
Yeah.
Chief handles security, but
Okay.
me and him can get our heads together with it.
Okay,
I'll be glad to talk to him about it.
all right.
Mike, it was me who suggested an item 3,
Okay.
and number 8 sort of ties in with it. I'd be happy to take those two, and I would want someone to help me, or perhaps even you might be interested in 3. I know you've spoken about this before, so anybody else want to get on those? I couldn't do it alone, but it's a big subject and it's rated high, so let's look at it.
A question I would have on the City Hall capital improvements is, if we do capital improvements at City Hall, do we bring in professionals to assess those improvements?
Certainly, at some stages you would have to.
So what we need to do is define a scope to bring to engage some people to look at
Right.
that. Okay. All right. I can work with you on that. Okay. I think that is anybody else? Any more thoughts? I'll ditto the poop stations. My wife was disappointed to hear that go so low. The poop stations. No, I think I see a lot of people out walking dogs and carrying little bags, and I think there's probably a better system than that. So. Okay, very good. Well, thanks for the thoughts and input. So the next item on the old business is the update and discuss potential 2019 Voight Center audio acoustical technology improvements. Kelly and Tom and I met down at Voight about a couple hours ago and looked through the old proposal. There's actually the original proposal from San Antonio Sound and Light, I guess.
Southwest Sound.
Southwest Sound, okay. And then there was a supplemental or a second proposal that Tom had gotten on the acoustical portion of it.
Yes, sir.
And so what we talked about was to look at doing it maybe in some kind of lifts and going back to both proposals really weren't complete. And so Kelly's going to go back to both groups and get an acoustical.
And get all the information that you and Tom said.
Yeah.
You wanted.
So it's kind of basically more acoustical, more the sound package for just the acoustical panels and the ceiling only, but not the walls for now.
Correct.
And then do the acoustical system upgrades that you had previously talked about, but get the other supplier
Right.
or the other vendor to look at that, so we have two numbers. So that's kind of where that is. So I guess maybe next month we'll have some good information to approve on that. Or discuss. So the next item is new business. Discuss and take item number 1, and discuss and take possible action. Oh, was there any citizen comment on the? You already had some, but any more on the Voice Center Audiovisual? Okay. Okay, the next item is new business. Discuss take possible action to provide funds to the Hollywood Park Tree Committee for purchasing bags of mulch to hand out to residents of the town of Hollywood Park, and that's a Delane.
Last year, y'all paid for the mulch, but you paid for it through, it was for the tree committee, but you paid through Holly because she set everything up. But it was the National Tree Day, and they had they planted a tree and they gave out mulch to the citizens, and they sent me here to ask if y'all would do that again. If you would pay for the mulch.
Okay, do you have an amount?
Do you have an amount, Kelly?
Don't remember what it was. I sent it to you.
I don't remember. No, I don't. We're asking for the same exact amount of bags, everything.
Okay.
Let me run it. I'll tell you what.
Well, no.
Let's table this. Let me run over and I can find the email.
I mean, I think we can get it. I think we can get it cleared based on last year's amount. So.
Was this the National Night Out?
Actually, you can put the resolution. Yeah, that we're agreeing to last year's amount, but you can put the amount in the resolution.
Right. Yeah. But if you take action today, tell me to draft a resolution. We'll just put that amount in the resolution. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you'd be fine.
Is this for the National Night Out?
No, it's not the National Night Out. It's the Arbor Day. I keep calling it the Tree Day, Arbor Day.
Okay.
That's when they gave out the mulch.
Last year they did it on National Night Out.
Yeah.
This year they're going to do it on Arbor Day.
Okay.
I thought we did it on Arbor Day also.
It was only on National Night
No,
Out.
last year it was on National Night Out.
Okay.
But this year they're going to do it on Arbor Day. They're going to do it in the daytime. I've got the Boy Scouts lined up to help with the distribution of it. I got a price on the mulch. Gardenville gave us a really good price on the mulch. They were going to do a delivery. That was all figured into it. And doing it during the daytime on a weekend, I think we might have an opportunity to reach out to a whole bunch more people. There are a bunch of businesses going to be at Arbor Day promoting their businesses and promoting the green industry. Hollywood Park is also Tree City USA, so this helps with our qualifications for that every year. So this is a good deal all the way around.
From memory, I think it was $1,500 or $2,000 last year.
I want to say it
That's
was
what I
like
was thinking.
18
Yeah.
something. Y'all did 2,000. I think they did 18 something or something like that. I don't remember, but something from memory.
Can we do a resolution for not more than 2,000? Okay.
And I can get you exact numbers.
Yeah, another thing I had asked clarification on is, do you need EDC participation? And Kelly assured me that he had scouts and stuff handling it. This was really a Brent Lane passion of yesteryear, and I'm not quite as passionate about sitting with mulch as Brent was. So on a weekend, but I'm happy to endorse the support of it. So.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Shannon Sims. We were fortunate to get some of the free bag last year.
Mm-hmm.
My only comment to you is the fact that when I opened up the bag,
And mildew.
it was old and moldy. So if we could watch out for that, that would be great.
We'll work on that. I think last year we were right in the middle of a big rainstorms season, and everything was soaked.
Everything got.
Another thing that happened a few years ago, at the end of the day, Brent's sitting there with 30 or 40 bags of mulch and that were left. And so he's going, what am I going to do with all this mulch? And so I got a trailer and took it to the office and bought all the mulch. I didn't need mulch at the office, but he didn't know what to do with his mulch. And so the Kelly said that he said any mulch that's left, he'll spread it at Voight Park. So that issue's resolved.
We'll use it at the park. We need it at the park.
Yeah.
And it's a great resource. So.
Yeah. So anyway, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve up to $2,000 for purchase of mulch for the Arbor Day Hollywood Park function.
Okay.
Second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for bringing that, Delaney. The next item is presentation by Bart Piscini with Play Decor concerning the possible placement of shade structures at Voight center pool, including taking possible action on the same and discussion of issues related thereto. So this is Kelly and Bart. Okay. Okay. Nice. We got the celebrity. There you go.
Huh?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. I have some packets here that.
You reintroduce yourself.
I'm sorry. Jeff Penfield with Play Decor. We're a playground installation company that does things like shades, playgrounds, dog parks. We talk about poop containers. We've got we set up dog parks. We set up outdoor fitness areas, things like that. So that's what we're in the business of doing. And we were asked to come and take a look at the pool and see where we could provide more shade. So we came up with an idea of a couple cantilever shades. I've got some presentation. I don't have enough of them, but I might be able to have one.
Yeah, I've got one.
On the first and second page, I did a little diagram of where the shades would fit. Basically, it runs along the fence. The big shade would run along the fence where there's two existing 10 by 10 umbrella shades that are on the outside of the fence. This would replace that, and it would be 12-foot out cantilever shade that would cover that whole length of the that fence area. So it would give over 60 feet of shade in that one area. The other thing that was asked of us is the kids' pool. They're getting baked, so we came up with an idea of doing a offset cantilever shade that comes out of one of the flower or two of the flower little beds by the kids' pool that would go cantilever over the kids' pool to provide shade for moms that are sitting in there with their kids, things like that. Of course, this is all, we have so many different options that this is just something that we suggested we could go back to the drawing board. We're also asked to, we put in a proposal to take those two 10 by 10 shades that are existing now, which basically don't cover anything. If you go out there, they're more shading the grass area than they are the pool area. We can relocate those to an area anywhere in Hollywood Park you'd want us to put them that would provide additional shade for other areas. And at the back, we also, we do little shelters, and we suggested a little shelter for each side of the tennis courts. So I guess the players could have a little bit of shade on the tennis courts, but that would have to be put into the present tennis court concrete. So these are just ideas.
The 8 by 8 gable end.
Correct.
Mini structures.
Correct. So these are suggestions, and of course we do anything when it comes to this type stuff. So if somebody else would like to take a look at it with us and really come up with some ideas, we have just a few catalogs too that, and of course I can expand on that and get everybody what they need, but just so you have something to look at. Any questions?
Is that a canvas material, or was that a?
Yes, it's a canvas material. It's basically it lasts up to, and I put it on the back page. You got all your specs on wind velocity and what it will hang on to. But I would say you're probably good with that with care and maintenance. Maybe 10 years, and then you can replace it. And of course, you could get a different color. The posts are fixed in cement, so they'll stay.
What's the maintenance? When you say care and maintenance, what do you do to maintain?
Basically, all you really need to do is shoot some type of. You can either. I don't like to use a power washer because sometimes people get the nozzle too tight and you can cut through things. Yeah. But some of the stuff they sell at like Home Depot, that is the mold reducer stuff. Maybe once a season, spray that on the canvas. The poles are all going to be, they're not going to rust or anything because they're powder coated.
So I'm not quite understanding what exactly are we trying to shade in addition to the kid pool?
You're trying to shade the whole, of course you've been there. The kids pool is here and there's a fence line that runs by the volleyball courts. Basically the volleyball courts and all the fitness equipment are on the other side. So that complete fence along the pool is what we would be shading.
So do you end up shading the pool, or do you shade the
No,
seating
it's
area?
only a 12-foot overhang. So it's only going to be, basically, you have the tables there, that are the 4 tables. It would provide nice shade for all of that, but it's not going to cover up the pool.
So it's the seating area next
Correct.
to the pool, touching
Correct.
the volleyball court. Okay.
Yeah.
So what it is what I'm trying to do is get more shade for the permanent shade for the seating area, so we can use the mobile shade to move it around when people want to move mobile shade. Right now, I've got umbrellas over all that. The umbrellas are mobile; they can be moved to other locations. If we have a permanent shade structure that reaches over there and puts shade out, then people that want to sit at the picnic tables, then they've got permanent shade.
Does it only provide shade to the seating area during certain times of the day?
Of course, it's going to go with the sun. And
Do we know how it goes with the sun?
Yeah, we went out there and measured at 11 o'clock in the morning. Your present shades that are sitting outside the 10 by 10s don't shade any of the area within the pool area. They were shading the grass. By about 3 o'clock, you're only getting about 1.5 feet of shade that actually hits the concrete. So this would be, and that's only, you have to figure 10 by 10, and that's an umbrella shade. So you're only getting 5 foot coming out this way. So with this, everything, all 12 foot is coming out. So you're going to have shade constantly throughout the day. Now, whether it approaches this way or comes this way, you're still going to have, they'll be able to move around to get underneath the shade.
So a 10 by 10 isn't providing any shade, but a 12-foot.
Cantilever is 60 foot long.
It's where it's located. It's on the fence line and it's straddling the fence. I'm going to be able to illustrate it here in a second with us. We did a sun study to illustrate what's being proposed and where we stand now. So.
Okay. No, I don't doubt it. I was out at the swim meet over the weekend, and everybody had their canopies lined up along the fence. So
yeah, this is something I've been discussing for a while. I have an opinion on the solution out there, and there's a reason for it, and I think I can illustrate it. But first of all, I want to say that Jeff and Bart their group is as good as they get in this space, and so when it's time to do, systems like they're proposing, they definitely need to be involved. Both of them are Hollywood Park residents. Both of them are friends of ours. Coincidentally, I didn't bring this in, but you guys did, and so I need to be very careful with what I say relative to my friends' business stuff. But it's I think that there are some shade needs in that area. I think that personally think there's some solutions that we need to consider. So can I show the shade study, or do you want to finish your questions? And I kind of want to get everyone's thoughts before I kick into my stuff. Anything else? Anybody out here? Okay. Did we want to do citizen comments also before finish any discussion? Okay.
Debbie Truman, 228 Fleetwood. I hope that y'all will seriously consider this, because residents are begging for shade down there on the deck. And again, I'm not going to vote for taking that pool fence down and enclosing the pavilion. I know that would provide some shade, but I'm not going to do that. So I hope that y'all will look at doing this, because that's what residents want.
Anybody else?
I have a question for the gentleman. If it was approved, when would you be able to complete the job?
If it gets approved, well, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the manufacturing the shade. And then we're going to be battling winter or summertime with all the kids and all that down there. The cantilever shade, fortunately, is going to be outside of the fence line between the volleyball court and the pool, so we can get a lot of that work done without interfering inside the pool, unless we do the kiddie offset cantilever shades in there. That's a mess. We'll have to do that during off hours, or after.
July, is that feasible?
No, it's no way. It takes 4 to 6 weeks just to get it manufactured and shipped and all that, and it'll probably take about 2 weeks maybe to install it. Yeah. But anyways, Bart Passini. Hi. Sorry, I was late. I was out in Houston visiting my daughter. Anyways, hi Scott. I know a couple of these guys up here too for a long time.
But we've been doing shades for probably about 12 years now, and we're finding a lot of people now are starting to put shades up over playgrounds, as you guys have over there at Triangle right now. And it's just really an advantage. And I know what's going on over there at the City Hall, and I know Mike's got some great ideas. I will say I like that idea of maybe opening the fence up. I know some people oppose it, but I think a great solution would be to add this shade down that one fence line right there, because that would just give people an option of being able to get underneath the shade. They can move around if they want to and get sun, but I just think we went out there, measured some with the measuring tape, and just realized that the single post, Justin, the single post umbrella shades, they're sitting back here, and it's a 10 by 10, so only 5 feet of it is hanging over the fence line right now. So when the sun's over here, it's not even covering inside the area. Eventually it does, kind of creeps, but not very much. Whereas the shades that we're going to have are going to be hanging over 12 feet already. So it's already going to automatically cover quite a bit of area, and it cools the deck down, and there's other places for people to sit if need be. But anyways, just want to let you know, we do this all the time. A lot of people want it, and it's a good thing.
Thanks, Bart. Anyone else? Okay, Jeff, if you would, you mind opening the slides, please? Yeah, thanks. So what we did is we took the model of the pool area. This is just digital modeling, and looked at the time of day, and this is based on kind of, I think it's a June month model, so it's not a winter time. It's a summertime model. So go ahead and hit the next slide. And so this is existing conditions, and you can see on that back fence line, see the two square ones? Those are the two shade structures, and there were some that I've complained about in other meetings, is they really aren't doing almost any good at all. They're fairly expensive structures, and they're really not. This is the same time of day this is 6 in the morning, and we're going to go through the whole day, and you're going to watch the sun move across this thing. But this is the structures that Bart and his team are proposing at this time. So the next is, these are the umbrellas that we have, and these are, like right now I think there's 8 umbrellas out there. One of the suggestions might be to add 4 or 5 more umbrellas, but do them out in the seating area that's out in the deck off to the right. But and I want you to, as we're looking at these, watch the pavilion in the back, and you'll see and how close that is to the pool area as we keep moving. So this is existing at 7 in the morning. These times don't really apply because no one's even at the pool till 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So we can flip through these pretty quickly and just kind of until we get to like 10 o'clock. Okay. All right. Yeah, well, just kind of slowly work your way up to 10 or 9 or 10 o'clock, yeah. But you can kind of see you have one little spot in the children's pool from the umbrella that's in the pool, and we spend a lot of time in that pool with grandkids, and they kind of find their way to that little shady spot. So there's certainly and this is what they're proposing. There's two structures at this time of day. One of them's be effective, and the other one's shading deck. So. Okay. And now you're starting to realize some shade out on the terrace along that fence line, but you also have quite a bit of shade from the umbrellas that you're leaving. I mean, you can still have umbrellas, but but now the pool in the middle of the day like that children's pool is getting great coverage with his scheme over what we have now. So I mean, look how much more shade's on that little pool. And look at the size of the pavilion. And I know there's a wall I'm running against on this issue, but how close the pavilion is to the pool and how big a shade piece that is. We have a pavilion off the play area. We have a pavilion over by Voight Center, and I think we have potential for more pavilion space out in the lawn to the left. But we'll talk about that. So middle of the day, again, now another aspect of this is all the tables down this left side where this shade structure is are all the tables with umbrellas. And so when I go out there in the middle of the day, somebody's stuff is on all those tables because they have the umbrellas. And they're in the pool, but their stuff is there. So their stuff has that shade reserved. And so the only seats left are these ones out in the open deck area, and there's no shade. But because I get there at the wrong time, and that's what happens. And so it's a very, I mean, there's a reason people are voicing opinions on getting more shade at the pool. But and it's offering more shade, but the umbrellas offer distribution of shade. So look what's happening with the pavilion as you move into that. Back up to like 3 o'clock. Yeah, can you back to about 3? Yeah, that's fine. But just watch the pavilion in the back and watch that shade. And this has been one of my complaints all along. The big walkway that's between the pool and the pavilion building, that walkway is the best shade we have. And it's just a walkway. And the pavilion area is about 1,000 square feet within the columns where the furniture is, but the walkway is where so much of the shade resides. And that's if you could push furniture out into that area, it would be significantly different with really very little cost. If we can redeploy the funds we're thinking about spending on this to create a picnic pavilion somewhere in Hollywood Park that people could have birthdays outside of the pool area, if we can dedicate this structure to them. No, it's not. The column to column to column where the furniture resides is 24 by 40. It's 1,000 feet. The building, the walkway is another 8 feet, another 8 by 40. Those are the dimensions. We've measured it off. So it's 1,000 feet from column to wall, the area where the furniture is. Now you have a sunny area, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the pavilion structure. And I think we could do but look at how much shade that thing provides now. This time of day, that area is delightful because it's casting it's covering the whole pool. I mean, it's getting in covering the pool in the evenings. That's why it's so nice down there in the evenings. So, but middle of the day, having that shade available would be amazing. And so that's kind of where I've been coming from on this issue is now I have one other slide I want to show, and that's the whole Voight Park area. And what I had asked in a previous meeting is there's the issue of shade, but I believe that there's also an issue of capacity in real estate within the pool area. We have a lot more young families that are hitting the community. We have a lot more non-resident members that are, now that the word is getting out how nice this place is, and anyone in the city can join our pool. And so the membership is climbing, and how long will it be before that pool terrace area is big enough? And I'd suggested to table this shade issue, buy a few umbrellas, table the shade issue until we get through another season, see what the capacity's doing out there, and see if people are if their towels are landing in the pavilion, and that's where everybody's stuff is landing when they're at the pool, and they're running back and forth through the gate, then we need to seriously consider a scenario that we give that pavilion to the pool. This exhibit it shows pavilions, that we have a pavilion there. You can kind of see and plan the pavilion in the yellow area is the one we're talking about. There's one that's almost just as big that's in purple, if you had a birthday, that's outside the pool area, that you have a pavilion there. You have a green one over there on the back of the center. Now, I know that center gets leased a lot, but there's a lot of times it's not leased, and so that you could do an event there, or you could reserve the back terrace and have an event there. And then see in the gray area up in this corner is at the end of this basketball. That's an area I'd like to see us look at doing a pavilion. Do a pavilion. We could do a pavilion as big as that. You can see in scale that 900-foot or 1,000-foot portion that's the shaded part of the pavilion in yellow. We can fit that in the gray area on this end. And if you walk out there, that land is probably 10 feet higher than the rest of Voigt Park. It's really a nice area that has no development in it. And but you look out over the whole park, well, that would be a great place for a family pavilion. You're right by the parking area, and if you could do a dedicated pavilion, this proposal right now from this group, and they don't know anything about how the budgets work, but it's a $60,000 proposal. Well, $60,000, we could probably for $100,000 or $120,000 do a really nice pavilion structure that's a permanent structure, or we could do all shade structures with these guys that would be in the same kind of numbers we're talking about, just deploy them in a zone up here. That's a thought. So, but I like the idea of having a pavilion down by the big parking lot that people come through the little path in the back, and it's right by the basketball court. The tennis court and basketball has a hangout then. If you're playing basketball, you could go with your buddies and go to the pavilion. If you're playing tennis, you could have a shade place to sit and visit or have a picnic. So I think a pavilion down at this end of the park, it would be a great asset. So that's my thoughts. Any questions on any of this stuff?
I just want to say that, that what we designed is, sort of where they wanted us to design it. Whatever you guys come up with, we can come up with that for you.
Yeah.
And, the thing I like about the shade, of course, we do pavilions too, but the shade is, you can change colors and it's not, a permanent facility. It's more of a get-together type, just a protection facility, which you could do fairly inexpensively in a lot of different ways.
It's just sun though, but it's not rain protection.
No.
Yeah. And I think if it's going to be something that replaced the pavilion, I mean, there's this controversial issue, but if it was to replace the pool pavilion now and be put somewhere as another structure, it probably needs to be another pavilion that keeps you dry.
Well, there's a very nice one back.
Yeah. And so, what do you think a 1,000-foot pavilion would cost if you were budgeting a 1,000-foot pavilion would cost?
Ooh, a 1,000-foot pavilion is probably going to cost you, I would guess, probably 15 to 20,000. Meanwhile, that all depends on.
That's like almost a pre-manufactured kind of product like you guys work with.
You'd have to put the slab down,
Yeah.
Put bricks around the columns, and
Yeah.
that's why dress it up.
But if you did an architectural version with lighting and it was kind of a bid project and all that stuff, it would be a bit more than that. But yeah.
Structures have built in so that you can handle your electricity. There's no outer type,
Yeah.
man-made building.
So y'all work lighting up into your poles and stuff. Yeah.
All that when we design it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, I don't do well with pictures, so I have to ask you these questions. You have it all opened up, where the pavilion's open. Not that one, but the one where you were showing the shade. Okay, where is it that you have the fence to close that pool off at? Is that
go back to that multicolor image, and I've got a pointer here. I'll try to. It's the other slideshow.
The other one?
Yeah.
I think your presentation shows that their shade would do what they say it's going to do, and I think that's what we're talking about, shade on the deck, not reimagining void park.
Yeah, I'm talking about a lot more than shade on the deck. I think there's a capacity issue, so,
The
yeah.
problem right now
Yeah.
is shade on the deck.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly where your position is on this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do something.
Yeah. So.
I think that we had seen some feedback from citizens and just from memory, I think people were against moving the fence. I don't remember why, but I just remember it was pretty overwhelming.
Well, it was overwhelming because of the way it was presented. They haven't seen any of this information, and it was sent in a very partial email or broadcast that Councilwoman Truman issued.
They watched the video
Yeah,
and made their mind up.
yeah. I don't know about that, but go back to the overall image, the multicolor. It's in this group, but it's just the first one of this set, the first image of this set. No, keep going back. Keep going back. There you go. That's it. So in this area, in the pool area, the new entrance, if this was done, would be right next to the snack bar. So when you come in the gate, the gate would be a big sliding gate at that location. So you would come into the pool area looking out into the pools.
Okay, so then when you put that fence up, then no one can go to the restroom. There's walk.
No, you go out the gate, out this gate to go to the restroom, just like you go out the gate to go to the restroom now. You go out you go out the gate, you go out through a gate by the lifeguard to go to the restroom now, and you go out this gate by a lifeguard to the restroom. It's exactly the same condition. The restrooms have to stay.
In or out of the pool.
The restroom has to.
Go out the gate and get to the pool.
The restroom has to stay outside of the pool area under current and under future scenarios, because the restroom serves playgrounds and other things besides the pool.
Okay, then, where you're talking about putting a pavilion, I myself do not want to go down there and listen to music and boom, boom, boom with the basketball banging and all this kind of stuff. Because you want to put a pavilion right next to where you've got a bunch of older kids playing basketball.
Okay.
And they're playing their music and the balls are making noise and, it just does not sound like a fun evening after work. I really appreciate everything that y'all do and all the time y'all put in, but I get very tired of listening to redoing the Voight Center that's won awards, that's beautiful, that works, and
So you're saying don't add shade at the pool?
I'm not saying don't add
But that's
shade.
what you just said. You just said.
No, you can.
Why would you redo the?
replace my
No,
umbrella
but the Voight Center, Voight Park won an award as it is, no change.
But that was by looks, not by shade.
But you're adding shade. Why are you adding shade? I mean, I'm just trying to make an example. Okay, but that's my point. There's a suggestion to refine it.
Okay, then let's put shade in. We don't need to knock down fences. We don't need to do all this stuff. We
Yeah.
don't need to build pavilions. All this huge amount of stuff. It's just.
But a $60,000 shade package is a pretty huge amount of stuff. I mean, we're talking about the same deal.
The general, in that package, a lot of that has, those little pavilions by the tennis court, take up a lot of that. I think it's like 40 grand just for the.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, 60 was for everything,
But-
not just the shade on the pool.
But we're talking about exactly the same thing. You're adding how many square feet of shade? You're adding 1,000 feet of shade. You're adding, actually, it was like 1,400 feet of shade or something like that.
We're gonna have to probably close to, if you were to do the whole package, you're about 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, and I'm talking about a structure that's 1,000 feet of shade. We're talking about exactly the same amount of shade. But the question is, where do you add it?
Where you want to shade those two, exactly.
My question is, where do you stop? Because then if it's this, now you want to watch TV on the back patio. Okay, you want to rent the Voight Center, but you want to watch TV back there with the buds. And then when we do that, then what do we want? It just never
No, but we're not talking about the Voice Center in this discussion. We're talking about the pool area.
One day we will. Because
No,
it's
but
always there.
but we're just talking about, all I'm talking about right now is shade within the pool deck, the pool terrace, which I believe is too small. I think the pool terrace is too small. We're talking about shade within the pool terrace, 1,000 feet of shade for $40,000. Or we're talking about taking in the 1,000-foot pavilion and building 1,000 feet of shade somewhere else for $40,000.
So my opinion, and
Let's say it's the same shade. Let's say it's the same structures. Yeah, go ahead.
So my opinion, and I'm not a member at Voight Park. I wish I had the time to go, but I'm not a fan of spending money on things that are already existing. So adding shade, to Kelly's point, we would then take the existing shade that we already paid for in umbrellas, and we'd be able to move those to other spots, right? So I feel like it's spending money, and we're getting something that we don't have today. As far as moving fences, I'm iffy on that because it's spending money on something that's already there and functioning. Even if it's not perfect, it's functioning, and people like it.
It's also a path, an integral, the walkway is an integral part of the path that goes all along the perimeter, the walking path. It's an integral part of the whole scheme, which would be disrupted.
I've only swam there once, so I'm having trouble visioning.
Well, it's not actually in the pool. I mean, the pool is fenced for a reason, you know, that fence is there for safety.
There's 3 points of access to the park area from the parking lots. There's the central walkway, there's this serpentine walkway off the back parking lot, and there's the one through the pool area. There's 3 places you can enter the park. So access, multiple points of access is provided under every scenario.
So we're talking about the walking path that was designed that's there. That would be interrupted. I mean, we just need
We're talking, it's change, it would be change, yeah. So, anyway, but I believe that we should wait until the summer and see if people are stacking all their stuff in the pavilion and walking through an 8-foot gate to get to their kids at the pool. And that's what I do. I'm all my stuff's over there, and my grandkids are in the little pool. Thanks, guys. Take care.
I'd like to make a recommendation. I thought we did a pretty good job having a joint meeting to discuss things that needed to be done in the park. We're sitting here talking about moving fences, not moving fences, putting up shade, not doing shade. Why don't we get together as a group, the city council and the EDC, meet down there at the park, at the pool, and let's talk about these things with a visual idea of what in the world we're talking about.
Well, that's well and good, but we're at a point right now during swim season when people want shade, and that's why I'm trying to get the shade done.
I understand that, but what I'm hearing here is, don't do anything, it's fine, but we need shade.
No, we're not saying that. We've been saying it all along, though, that we don't want the fences down, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. We've been saying it all along.
Put the shades up that these guys proposed. That's what we need.
But
Let's let the council pay for it.
Yeah, but what
You
I...
know what? If we have to, we will. But this
Yeah.
is something that y'all can pay for, and it is a shame if we have to take it out of city funds.
I think you can add 4 umbrellas and have the same square footage of shade over the pavilions in the areas, because when you add up the umbrella count we already have, if you add 4 or 5 more umbrellas, you could have the same square footage of shade as we're going to end up with permanent shade structures in the pool at the end of this process. And so it's the permanent structures will not be ready for this summer. The permanent shade structures will take 6 weeks to do, plus foundation structures and all this stuff in the pool area.
I talked to a gentleman today.
Yeah.
Came out and gave me an estimate.
Yeah.
He's finalizing it. He said he could probably have it up before the 4th of July.
Same kind of problem.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So
Umbrellas or cantilever?
Cantilever. And he's talking not even 12 foot, he's talking even 14 foot. To add another 2 foot on top of it. He's finalizing numbers. I would have had it for y'all today, but you just couldn't get it here fast enough. But,
And
you
so
know,
what happens if you put $50,000 or whatever, $40,000 into shade structures at the pool, and then you find that the pool area in the fall, by August, the pool area is too small for the crowds that are out there. And I've talked to lifeguards, and they said, at any kind of peak times, it's overflow into that pavilion. So what happens if the pool terrace area hits crowds that are bigger than? I mean, do we have membership counts compared to last year? Is it growing?
I can't tell you if it's growing yet because we haven't got this season. Over the first season, of course, it grew because it was new the first year.
Is there a pattern of growth?
I've actually got sheets that the lifeguards are filling out for documentation so I can try to get a pattern. My experience from last year, being out there all the time, watching the crowds, it never really got crowded except on major event days. 4th of July, end of school, end of summer, swim meets, that type of stuff is whenever it was overcrowded. I think it was 5 events for the summer.
But would a swim meet function better if it was bigger?
I don't really, you're talking 600 people. I mean, the park was packed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just wall-to-wall people everywhere. The deck area being bigger, I don't think makes any difference at all. Because you get to a point where there's just so many people, it is what it is.
I have a question. Michael Howe, not Howell, that's the guy from Gilligan's Island. Why wouldn't we want to do a temporary or a fence along the walkway there that you can open up as needed and close it when we don't need it, so that you can use the pool, the pavilion, and there's an overflow of people coming from the pool. And when we don't need it, it's a small group there, you just close it, and it's open, you can walk, open it, close it as we need it. That's what my suggestion is.
So are you suggesting that?
The gate is right there. You walk out and you're under the
But you have plants there right now. I would like to see it if you could. And I know, looking down the line, there's going to be more and more people using that facility. And I would like to see not a permanent open, locking that pavilion. I want to be able to, if it's a 4th of July party, open it up. Let people walk in and out, as needed, instead of doing a walk around.
But if you do that, you need the pool to be secure. So you need a gate system on the back if you're going to do that. That's not there now. So.
Well, you also have to move some plants.
And you need gates at both ends of the walkway if you're going to do something like that. But that's an interesting idea. We've looked at that or talked about.
So with this being Texas, could we ever have too much shade down there? In either situation, is it too much shade?
Well, I think it would be unusual if it ever got into the pool.
But what the current proposal, that shade never hits the pool, right?
No.
No, this proposal, I would say no.
So then is it a moot point talking about configuration of the fence?
For this, I think it is. This is strictly, do we want to put the shade or do we not want to put this shade?
I don't think it's moot because we're deploying funds that we could deploy. We could put the shade at Triangle, or we could put the shade another shade pavilion somewhere at another part of Voight Park. We could put shade back behind the Voight Center. We could do shade pavilions all over the place.
So then my opinion,
shade on Pocket Park,
my opinion would be money spent on shade is best spent at the pool.
All right. Any more comment? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Are there opinions from other members of the board?
I guess I'll voice mine. I see both sides, right? And I tend to agree, though, that if we want shade at the pool deck, that's really where we want it, right? So I see no reason why I wouldn't be on board with what was proposed, but it sounds like, there may be other alternatives as well, or better ideas, maybe more cost effective. So I would be on board with approving something to address the shade along that fence.
Well, here's a question. What about doing shade at the kid pool? Because you have the fence lines covered with umbrellas already. And if you shade the whole fence line, the tables along the fence line are still going to be covered with towels, and you're not going to get to use those seats. The seats get taken, not the deck. And so that whole line of tables on the fence line, because we use the pool a lot of the opposition, I know Deb doesn't use the pool, and Julie said she really doesn't use the pool. The fence line, that group of seating those are the seats that are taken. Go out there any Saturday and you'll see every one of those tables taken because they have umbrellas. And so if that's the line where this structure's going, those same tables are taken, and that shade is not available for the people out in the open part of the deck. It's the same issue. It doesn't really improve the situation, in my opinion.
But it frees up the umbrellas to be moved out into the open area to create more shade out for other people.
But you could buy 4 more umbrellas and do the exact same thing for a few $100, not $40,000. You really could. You could buy 6 new umbrellas for hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. And so it's a cost value thing.
What was the intent of the presentation from the company today? Who asked for it?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, it was brought to me. Let's get some shade, get some proposals on some shade
And this
structures.
is one of the options?
So this was the best option that we could come up with, was a cantilever shade structure that reaches out to give shade where along that fence line, so we can move and deploy the umbrellas out in other areas. There's a lot of people who don't want shade. There's a lot of people out there who want to go lay out in the sun. The kids don't care. Kids are kids. So the best all-around way to accomplish for everybody was, let's put a permanent shade structure someplace so we can deploy our mobile shade structures where people want them at. Hey, I want some shade over here. Nobody's using an umbrella. Move the umbrella over there. Now you got shade over there. I'm not an expert in construction, but my guess, because you have to have plans drawn up, you have to have probably environmental studies, all this stuff has to be done. You're probably looking at a hard structure, the same size as the shade structure. My guess would probably be about $100,000. I talked to
a lot of time would be involved.
I talked to a construction guy about putting a pavilion over here in the corner. He said, a pavilion basically the same size as that one that Mr. Drury's talking about. Once all the plans are drawn up and all the studies are done and everything's done, you're looking at probably somewhere around $250,000. But once again, like I said, I'm not anyway an expert in construction or the cost of construction at all. These are just really, really rough numbers that were given to me.
Part of the issue on permanent structures is that these umbrella shade structures let air go through them, so you don't have the wind loading issues. When you do a permanent structure, you have really primarily uplift. And so if you get heavy winds and they can uplift, these things can fly. And so the foundations are pretty extensive. But a pavilion, that number's pretty high for a pavilion.
Like I said, I don't have any. You have more idea than I do.
Pavilion, ballpark, you could get it done for $40-50 a foot. But you have some other costs related to making it happen, soft cost and stuff. So 100, 120 is probably good number budget to carry for something like that, but it's still real money. I mean, it's not. if you're gonna go hard top on it.
Mike, could I just say a couple of things? I run to the pool and I get my drinking water there on the side of the building. I've never been inside the pool, never been swimming there. So I don't have the appreciation for when it's hot or what it feels like. It strikes me that the children's pool, that cover, would really benefit some people who are directly in the pool, parents especially with their children.
Yeah.
Maybe want to sit out there for quite a while when the kids play. And so maybe you could take just that portion of this project proposal and go with that. Secondly, it seems like you may have, other vendors or somebody or contractors you're talking to, and you should bring that information to us.
I'm trying my hardest to get everything I can to y'all.
Okay.
Once again, this is the time when construction is booming, and it is, you call them and you can call them all day long. Sometimes they'll make it out, and sometimes they won't.
Yep. And third, I've actually sent some photos of kind of the triangular shape.
The sail-looking ones?
Yeah, the sail. I see those at multifamily properties when I visit, and I've sent some of those to you.
They have them in their package. I mean, if that's what you want, they can do those.
Yeah.
In this stuff, they have all kinds.
They might be less expensive and maybe quicker to install than the cantilever style.
The time of installation is the foundation and the column. It's getting that column put in and all that work.
Yeah.
Is that's where they're going.
Okay, so I just wanted to suggest that. I would say maybe start with a kiddie pool and take some time to do your user counts and other things. At least you get some shade.
Do we need to bid it?
But it sounds like not everyone's in agreement.
Would you bid it or go with one group?
I tend to bid things if you're going to spend that much money, over 50,000, 25 or 50,000, you ought to be bidding things out.
We can't do it here if it's 50. It's got to go to council anyway.
Right.
So, and really, we can't even do it over 10.
I can't hear you.
I mean, we can't do over 10 without going to council. So it's not a fast approval process anyway, under any scenario. But and I think if it goes, what's the number it has to bid?
50. Okay. So anything 50 or over, you have to go out for either a competitive bid or you have to use one of the statutory procurement procedures.
Right now, it's a $60,000 package in the binder.
Yeah, as the design concept.
Right.
Yeah.
I also thought Tom had a good idea to go look it over, maybe talk it through as a group, see, what the proposals involve and where the shade would fall and so forth. It's not a bad idea to be there and talk about it.
Well, and especially I think if there are members of this group that haven't, used the pool much or haven't been in there for whatever reason, I think it's worth knowing how it lays out, how it feels.
Go down and experience it.
Yeah. Because in my experience, including this summer, when you walk in, even unless you're there when the doors open, people come and they put their stuff on those tables and they leave so they can reserve the table.
Yeah.
They come back a couple hours later,
right,
and the table's reserved. You follow me?
Is that like a policy issue? Should the lifeguards be policing that?
Well, I mean, I guess they could, but it's a challenge, when someone says, I'll be back in 5 minutes,
Yeah, it's pretty much, all the tables down there are first come, first serve. So, you go down there on Saturday and every table in the pavilion has got something sitting on it at 9 o'clock in the morning because they want to do birthday parties. I can make a policy saying if you're not sitting on the table, then you don't get to keep the table, but who's going to enforce that? I can't expect 16-year-old lifeguards to enforce that.
Lifeguards should be watching the kids, not policing tables.
That's exactly right.
So do we have a motion?
Well, do we want to approve any even mobile, or just the children's baby pool, or do we table it all? Or?
Well, I brought it to y'all in the way I brought it to y'all, so y'all could, if y'all wanted to pick and choose. Hey, we want to do this part, but we don't want to do this part. Then you can do it that way.
You say you have another group looking at it now?
I will have.
So does it make sense for you to get your other group, do the children's pool, bring them both to the next?
Well, do we want to do a meeting next week? I would really like to get this done so they can utilize the shade this summer before it gets really hot.
Did I hear this group say that they couldn't have the shade done? Like 6 weeks?
They said it would take 4 to 6
and
weeks.
that the children's area would be even more of a challenge because of the activity in the area?
And that's what Mr. Pacini said.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think we should do? If an opinion up here, if a joint opinion would be the children's pool area, I think, we have some that think the whole thing's good, some that say children only. If we went just children, who would do that, and how does that get approved? And
Well, of course, I want to get this other company's information and get in front of y'all, but I'd like to get it done in a timely manner, not waiting another month.
All right, we can meet next week if people are available.
Or do you want to distribute it? Can we do an online vote?
No, I mean, you can do online distribution of information, but any deliberation or vote has to be in public, in a physical meeting.
All right, could we approve this proposal contingent upon you not getting another proposal less? If you get another proposal less than that, we'd have to come back and revote. Can we do something like that? What I'm trying to do is set it up to where we can do another meeting only if a lower proposal comes back that we need to vote on. But our resolution is done in a way.
Are we talking about what specifically are we talking about on proposal? What parts of the proposal? Just the child pool, or the whole thing?
In that discussion, I'm talking the child pool. I mean,
Okay.
I guess we could start by determining a motion if it's an all or not no motion. Are we doing this whole proposal?
First of all, you need to, depending on what pieces you're talking about, will determine your amount, which will determine your triggers, which will determine
That's
how
right.
much process you've got to go through.
Right.
Do you got to go through council, or do you go through council, but you don't have to go through procurement procedures? 'Cause
The
that's
council
part-
triggers 10.
The council figure is 10, the procurement, state procurement figure is 50. So
So even the child pool is more than 10 with installation.
Yes, it is.
What was one child structure? One child shade structure, because really the one on the south side's doing.
He didn't really give me a breakdown of what it would cost for one, but if you divided it in half, it would be.
I think he had the breakdown. Oh, you're right. It was a two. Yeah. So it's base $3,500 for that.
So if we did one, it would be $5,230 roughly.
With the install, yeah.
With the install and everything, roughly.
So the two children's canopies outruns our bandwidth, is what we're saying. So we could do one of those that would be an immediate approval.
Well, y'all could do both of them and get it in front of council Tuesday.
And not go to the other group?
No, hopefully, I should have their information tomorrow. You can approve, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can approve the amount, and if I can get a bid lower than that, you don't have to approve who I'd use. You just approve the amount. Let me go find a bid. If I get a bid lower than that, then I just saved y'all money. If I don't get a bid lower than that, then we've got that much approved.
Do you know if these proposals, can we cherry pick this proposal and do these numbers still work? These guys?
I had them lay it out just like this because I told them, I said, I don't know what they're going to want to do. So break it down so they can pick and choose what they want to do.
Because most contractors, it doesn't work. When you start taking parts, their general conditions eats it up and it gets out of whack.
They actually added the tennis courts after they prepared the first proposal, because I wanted to add that on there so y'all would have that information also.
Okay. All right.
So I motion that we take on the child swimming pool to cantilever option in an amount not to exceed, if my math is right, 14,000, with all the different line items on here, with the understanding that Kelly is expecting a proposal tomorrow from another company that might be of a lower amount.
Okay.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank y'all. So the last item on our agenda is discuss and take possible action. Last item, we have two words. Discuss and take possible action on 2019 100% Hollywood Park campaign project to fund the creation of flyers, handouts, and mailers that provide and incentivize and increase the local sales.
No. And Mr. President, I'm going to have to slide out of here. I've got another place I have to go to. I appreciate your time. Thank you, guys. And Julie, thank you.
There's a lot happened since last time I sat in the audience to talk to you guys a little bit about the sales tax issue. But let's first start on page 1 here. We all live in Hollywood Park, Texas. And I know that seems so obvious, but you'd be surprised what comes into your mailbox. I don't know if you saw there was a flyer about a house for sale on Rudamata. And on that flyer that came from the realtor, it said, I won't give you the address, Rudamata, San Antonio, Texas. And then at the end, // Hollywood Park, as if we're a neighborhood of San Antonio. We are a town. In that town, we share the zip code with 2 other entities, tax jurisdictions. We have Hill Country Village, we have San Antonio, and Hollywood Park. And there lies the problem. So our retail tax dollars need to move into Hollywood Park, not just our individuals, ourselves. Your bills need to be generated. I mean, as Hollywood Park is your home. Telecommunication is a really big one, which would be your mobile phone, your landline phone, your internet service, cable TV, Sirius XM. If you stream on Roku or Amazon, if you stream any of those channels like Hulu, Netflix, MLB, baseball, all of that is a sales tax that is supposed to come to Hollywood Park, not San Antonio. I was on the phone with Netflix last month, trying to get them to understand that I don't live in San Antonio, I live in Hollywood Park. You know, it's $1 something, I think is the, I forget, it was 94 cents on cable. I don't know how many homes there's 1,278 homes, but I don't know how many people stream. I don't have cable, I stream, I do have internet, but all of that is taxable as well. So the next page was the big whammy. All of that telecommunications is a little bit of the money that we're going to be getting if we switch over to Hollywood Park. But the big thing is the South Dakota versus Wayfair Supreme Court ruling last June. What it was, Wayfair decided to sue South Dakota because they were charging a sales tax, state sales tax and a local sales tax. Wayfair does not have any operation in South Dakota, doesn't have a warehouse, doesn't have distribution, doesn't have salespeople. So they felt it was a burden to their commerce, e-commerce business. So the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 majority state that they can charge a sales tax. It's not an undue burden, or it wasn't troublesome to them. And that also reflects on the state of Texas. So what happens with that, it frees up Etsy, eBay, all these marketplace platforms that now are going to be collecting the sales tax. The state of Texas could add about $550 million in revenue to the books the next 2 years with the passage of House Bill 2153 and House Bill 1525. House Bill 2153 makes it extremely easy to collect the sales tax. It's going to be a flat, simple sales tax of 1.75%. It starts October 1st, and it'll end at the end of the year, and then before that, the controller will publish in the calendar what the sales tax will be for the upcoming year. This bill was signed, by the way, on May 17th by the governor. So that's the first part into an intricate little thing that's going to help Hollywood Park generate some more income. House Bill 1525, okay? A sale of a taxable item made on a marketplace platform, a seller through a marketplace like Amazon or eBay, is consummated at the location in the state to which the item is shipped or delivered, or which possession is taken by the purchaser. Which means if you are shipping something on Amazon and it's going to 124 Cueva Lane, San Antonio, Texas, San Antonio, Texas gets the sales tax dollars, not Hollywood Park. Example of marketplace providers: Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart online, by the way, is a platform. Not if you're buying from the store, but they also have people that post stuff on there and use it as a marketplace. Delivery apps like Favor. Favor is a delivery app that HEB purchased, and what they do is they will pick up on demand. Say you're in the yard, you're working on a project, you need something from Lowe's. They will go over to Lowe's, pick it up for you, and bring it to your house. That's where the sales tax now is, because it was delivered to your house. By the way, HEB purchased them in 2018. It is it's a great little thing, but I'm also trying to clarify if Grubhub and places like that would also be the sales tax would be consummated at the house of the delivery address. The current status of this bill, it was signed May 24th, okay, by the governor, which now puts things in place to start collecting 1.75% of the online sales tax. What that's really going to do is think about this starts October 1st. So all of your fourth quarter holiday season shopping, all of your Cyber Monday, okay, all of that stuff will be starting to get collected, okay, through this 1.75% sales tax. Knowledge is power, and what I want to do is educate our citizens about their telecommunication bills and their online orders when it comes to these marketplaces. We can advertise in Sparks, put an article in there, get connected, a little blurb, okay, from the City Hall. But the other thing I like to do is a mailer. All right, the mailer direct to home. Not everybody is on Get Connected. Not everybody reads the Sparks. Hopefully they'll read the mailer that comes. So what I've done is I've actually talked to a couple of companies, and the lowest bid I got for a direct mailer is $3,000 direct to the home, and that would be for 5,000 cards. It's a little bit bigger than a postcard. My thing is 5,000. So I'm kind of negotiating with, maybe we can do 2 mailings of that 5,000. She will warehouse the balance, and we could use the some of those to give to Margot Villarreal, who is on the welcoming committee. She's agreed to put some information on when people move into the town. Their welcome packet would have, hey, you moved into Hollywood Park, you don't live in San Antonio. Make sure your telecommunications and all your online orders are say Hollywood Park. So that's what I'm really looking at doing. I know that 5,000 is a lot. We can get 2 mailers out of it. I also would like to get this into the business community as well, because they have telephones, they have internet, they're purchasing cable or satellite, okay, and I think that's something that we can get them on board as well. Letting them know that, hey guys, you know, there's a company that just opened up not too recently, and their little thing came in the mail, and it said San Antonio, Texas, not Hollywood Park. And I'm just a big believer in Hollywood Park. It means a lot of money, more money into our coffers. So, anybody have any questions?
Oh yeah, I do. What about the Postal Service? Is there any conflict with?
Yeah, the 5,000, this $3,000 includes everything, the printing, the mailing, and everything. And I looked at the Postal Service. There's a lot of time and effort involved in getting them to. You can do do I think it's called direct-to-door mailing, all right? Then we would have to go to Kinko's or FedEx office to have the stuff printed up, go to the post office. They can help you with the zip codes and everything. And where the question they had was, what's the center of the town? Well, I'm looking at the map while I was over here earlier, going, what is the center of the town? Because that's what they want, the actual physical address, and they'll pull out further and further and further. I just don't want this mailing to go to people in San Antonio or Hill Country Village. You know, I want it to be just here. And then, according to Redbird, okay, which is one of the companies I talked to, they can just nail it down to Hollywood Park residents and businesses too, by the way.
Does the post office have any say-so over how we identify the shipment of a parcel package, for example?
Well, here's the thing. When you fill out when you're online and you're purchasing something, a lot of times when you put 78232, it populates to San Antonio or Hill Country Village. You literally have to go into there and override that town and put in Hollywood Park. So the post office, FedEx, UPS, it's all based on a zip code. And they see 78232, not as Hollywood Park, they see it as San Antonio. So you really, like I set up my Amazon account. I purposely had to twice put it in there because it says, are you sure you're not San Antonio? I'm like, yes. So you have to and yes, the post office has got a lot to do with it, so it's FedEx and UPS.
So if we override it, I guess my ultimate question is, you override it, you put Hollywood Park in there, and particularly if it were to come through the Postal Service, is the postal company going to be
They'll be able to find your
upset?
You'll be able to find
that we're using a different town name, because I think it seemed like years ago they forced us to use San Antonio all of a sudden.
Well, you know, it's Hollywood Park. I get stuff sent all the time. Hollywood Park. My AT&T phone bills, everything was switched over, okay, and it still shows up. The only thing is, because a lot of these companies use computer systems, they see it. Like we use Oracle at work, and if I put 78232 in there for an order, it pops up San Antonio. Then it'll give you a suggestion. Hill Country Village, you know, Hollywood Park is last on the list for 78232. There's over 1,600 tax jurisdictions in the state of Texas. So this is a common problem. And one of the things that was mentioned in these two bills, they don't want municipalities fighting against each other. But the easiest way to get that done, make sure you live in Hollywood Park, make sure it's on your telephone bills, your telecommunication bills, and when you're ordering something online.
Mike, I'm going to have to interrupt. I've got a contractor waiting at the house. I've got to go meet. I thought I was going to be out here by 7. But I'm in full support of whatever campaign you need for this thing. So
I want to wait to see. I want to see if I can negotiate a better price than 3,000. Because I feel like I don't have to pay for postage on the ones I want to give to the welcoming committee and things like that. So I want to work something out on that. Get 2 mailings out there, okay, and the rest we would use to give in the package.
do we have a motion? Does anyone have a motion, or is there more discussion?
I'll make the motion. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, what was the dollar amount? 3,000.
3,000. I'm trying to sitting it down.
So I make a motion to approve the expenditure of up to $3,000 for the 2019 100% Hollywood Park campaign project for the creation of flyers, handouts, and mailers.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mike, thank you very much for driving that process, and if, as you need help, it's very interesting. It's
I don't know.
Additional 4-digit zip code would
you can use your meeting
still
form.
populate San Antonio.
No, the vice president would.
Who's the vice president? Would you carry the
All
meeting?
right, we got it.
You got it. There's another item. So,
Mike, I have a question real quick.
say it. Sorry about that.
As far as the design of the mail out,
Yeah.
is that something we need to look at?
You know, I can show it to you before we do anything, before it goes to print.
Okay, so you've already got some design
I
in
have
mind.
nothing designed yet. We're nailing down exactly what.
Mr. Howell, if you're gonna, can you still be here so we can all hear you?
We have not come up with a design yet, okay, Tom?
Okay.
But we're waiting because I want to negotiate the cost of the postcard, which is going to be a little bit bigger than a postcard, and the cost of shipping it and mailing it, because, like I said, a certain percentage I'm not going to mail out. I want to use them as sort of like a flyer, a handout,
Right.
have some at City Hall. There's even been some talk about maybe having a blank template set up.
And I think we all want to see what it looks like before we print it. Yeah.
Right.
But there's also another thing that someone had mentioned, a template that could be available here for someone to, call AT&T, someone to call Netflix, phone numbers and things like that to make it a little easier to get this process, switching it over, done.
Yeah, and I think we should go with the Sparks, the Get Connected.
Right.
Anything that we can get out in front of the public to make this happen.
That's why it's especially since it starts the sales tax starting October 1st. I really want to get this rolling and in front of everybody.
May I interrupt just briefly on that issue? Also, the sales tax issue is directly EDC related, but you had mentioned the businesses as well.
Yes.
One thing that we should include with this, for businesses and when you do stuff at your homes, remodels and labor is taxable. And so when the contractors come in and they do remodels and they do changes that are taxable, the entity... Yeah. But Mr. Henderson and I have been talking about one coming in that we can assist. If it's in the commercial side, though, there's an option, and so usually you want to incentivize them to make sure they're listing Hollywood Park as the location that the work is occurring. The owner's paying the sales tax no matter what. It's just where does it end up going?
Is that evaluated during the permitting process?
No. Because the permitting process is you're getting a permit from Hollywood Park, so you get the Hollywood Park permit. But like for the contractors, they will pay the tax to the comptroller based on where their corporate headquarters are, which aren't necessarily going to be in Hollywood Park. But if you want to make sure they do it in Hollywood Park, if it's done at your home, you can basically tell them, make sure you're listing it as Hollywood Park. If it is for a business or a commercial establishment, there's actually a comptroller checklist already that you can give them to say, make sure you fill this out, and that it's filled in as Hollywood Park, and then all the sales tax that ties to the labor is also going to Hollywood Park instead of going to San Antonio. And so if you're going to include information, you might look at more than one type of mailer, a mailer to the citizens and then a mailer to the businesses, because the businesses will have a slightly different options for them that you want to make sure they use, so you're capturing that labor as well as those purchases.
Do we know how many businesses are in Hollywood Park? Does anybody know that?
Keeps changing.
And we got the brand new one coming in on the
Right.
4th event. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to make sure we're completely encompassing what your abilities are. So it's within your power to look at doing both of those, and I think it's a fantastic idea.
You brought that up last month, and I had no idea that if we were doing work on your house as a contractor, the sales tax would be.
Yeah, if it's taxable labor, then you need to make sure that it's listed as the place of location to be taxed as your house. Yes, ma'am.
Last summer, I went through a total remodel, and when I was doing my income tax, because I bought so much stuff, I was doing this above and beyond sales tax, and it was not on my documentation, so I called the remodel guy. I do not remember the reason he gave me, but he told me that he does not charge me tax. I think if I went to a print and had them come in and do a floor, well, there'd be tax. When he was the contractor and did the whole job, he gave me a reason, whether he was lying to me or not. There was just nothing written there for tax. So I don't know if there's a reason.
There are reasons. Certain labors are taxable, certain labors are not. So it depends on what kind of labor it was and what was installed and stuff like that. But for most of your commercial remodels, all that's going to be taxed unless it's a new structure. If it's a personal one at your house, depends on what they're doing. But if you're going to be looking at kind of this 100% Hollywood Park, make it 100% of 100% for Hollywood Park. So I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that, so you can be capturing it at the same time.
Yeah, great additional color. Mr. Henry, so we know that any mailer we might want to consider the audience who we're sending it to, homeowner versus business owner. Any other citizen comments? So then moving right along, discussion concerning the outreach to local businesses for potential sponsorship for the 2019 EDC and Community Association Golf Tournament project and issues related thereto. Do we have any citizen comments? And what about discussion? To me, it seems like the big thing is deciding who will reach out to the businesses.
I'm not sure what outreach was planned or expected. Actually, maybe this is the first time we've heard about reaching out. So could you elaborate more on what's needed? Or
it looks like Mike put it on the agenda. I haven't heard about it before this.
Yeah, because I thought that we were participating somewhat financially with the HPCA to do the tournament, and this is the first that I've heard that they want us to, outreach. So maybe Mike just needs to tell us next month.
Yeah.
Well, just table this to reoccur for next month.
So we will table this to reoccur for next month. And then the last item, discussion on possible additional projects for future agendas. Does anyone have any citizen comments?
I do. I kind of thought about this last year with my first budget. So this year I'll be a professional. I'll know what to expect. And I didn't know because like the police department and the fire department, they will bring their wish list of what they would like done. And I noticed that they'll say, well, let's see if EDC will do this. Let's see if EDC will do that. And I don't know if it's something that would make it easier for y'all and for council if we presented a sheet with here's some things that is needed for the city that with the firemen, the policemen, whatever, and then y'all pick and choose from that, and then that way y'all can do your budget easier. I was just wondering what would it take to make, okay, it's kind of like we talked about at one time Mike wanted to landscape the down at the Lloyd Center. We're past planning time now, and then now the umbrella thing. Right in the middle when all the kids are sweating, all this kind of stuff where it seems like if we go into beginning the new year knowing what to do and y'all agreeing among yourselves which one you want to support, then we could have done the shade structure in, we'll say, February or March or something. You know what I'm saying? Everything would be more or less approved ahead of time.
Yeah, no, thank you for your feedback, and we can scope it out with Ryan, I guess, if we're permitted to do budgeting workshops.
You're permitted to do budgeting workshops. You actually do need to adopt a budget. Your budgets in the past have been a little more, you haven't been as active as you've been this last year. So, because you would basically borrow from the prior year and then make minor changes on it. I don't think that'll necessarily work for this coming budget cycle. So, getting information from the council as to things that, one, just because they want it, though, doesn't necessarily mean it has an EDC purpose. So we've got to make sure that whatever they're looking at is something you can do. And then from there, you decide if you want to add any of those. But you budget certain sections or certain blocks for anticipated projects.
What would be the recommended time frame for doing a budget workshop for the upcoming fiscal year?
Actually, you probably need to do at least one budget workshop in July and look at being done by the beginning of August, because the budget has to be approved in September.
Yeah.
But you've got to run it through council to get you can approve your budget, but then they got to approve your budget. And so you have to kind of coincide whenever they're doing their budget.
Do we have support from the council to do a July budget planning meeting? Is that something? It sounds like it's being recommended.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. If you're doing yours and we're doing ours, y'all aren't going to know what we're going to say. This is what we would like y'all to look at or consider, or this is what, ask the lawyer if it's even a doable thing.
Ryan, what have you seen that works well?
Well, especially because of the timing when you have to approve them, and your budget won't necessarily change a lot. Their budget will change, the city's, because the legislature just kind of changed how they can do their tax collections. So, but if the city is doing its budget, during its budget process, it will come up with stuff that they're not able to do, and so those would be things that they would ask the EDC to do. The EDC can do its budget. You're allowed to put a certain amount into a reserve kind of account, expecting it to be amended and utilized for future, projects. And so you can set aside certain amounts for things when council brings them to you. If they're, we get loop Jeff in on this, but your budget has to balance. And so you've got to make sure all of what your expected income is, and you're accounting for the dollars on both sides. But you can actually set up funds for anticipated projects from the council as part of the budgeting process.
Do we know when yours is in July? What day? Okay. Okay.
And it just depends. Sometimes, the way I understand, sometimes it maybe takes 3 meetings, sometimes it's 4. It just depends on how far along you get, with the discussions and.
Well, we're smaller, so usually we can get ours done in about.
I don't know how long it would take us.
Do we want to pick a tentative date, or is that premature?
I think it's premature.
Okay.
Probably what I recommend is that Jeff and I talk with Janice and we figure out when, because usually finance will pull last year's budget for you guys and put it into kind of a proposal form, and that's what you start with when you're moving forward. And we can set you a time in July. It'll be a special meeting, but you come in and we'd give you the proposal ahead of time with some suggestions, and then you think about, you come in and you decide what things you want to budget, what things you don't want to budget. You don't have the same types of expenses the city does. You don't have payroll and, capital improvements and some of those other things. So it's easier for you guys, but you still have to have a budget. So Jeff, how long would you think it would take to pull together a proposal one for them?
The way I have budgeted economic development corporations before is that you go through, you do your operating expenses of the corporation, and then you have the accounts. And it's account, and it's split up into different projects, but basically it's a account for projects, okay? You budget it all out there, okay? Whatever's remainder left, so that you can choose anything you want during the year, all right, to do, and you don't have to go to a budget amendment or anything like that. Whenever you have a budget amendment, it has to go to council too, okay? This budget, I'm going to bring a lot of amendments to at the end because it's so far off compared to what it was. So what you do is you take care of your operations needs. The rest of it falls into the projects account to where you decide what the projects are, and when they're over a certain amount, $10,000, then council ratifies them. And you don't have to worry about any budget amendments unless something goes awry on any of the operating expenses. That way, you have your money there. And you can use it if you want to, but you don't have to use it. There's nothing wrong with not using all of the budget. Okay, the other way around, where you don't have it budgeted, that's where you run into problems.
Great. No, that makes perfect sense. So then we'll all know that to expect this coming in July.
Yeah, Jeff, let's talk. Let's talk next week about the timing of when we can put together the operational expenses.
Haven't we typically just done the budget in conjunction with the normal monthly meeting and not had a special budget workshop, which I think is what you're talking about?
I guess, Ryan, you were saying because we've been more active this year?
I think you're going to need a little bit extra time to do that. Either that or you're going to have a really long regular meeting.
If we're really just talking about, a pool of dollars for projects as they come up, then I guess I'm not seeing how it's.
It'll take a little bit.
Sounds like what we've done in the past, which is.
Well, what you've done in the past won't work because what you did this last year, as Jeff said, he's going to have to come with a lot of budget amendments from this last budget year because you guys have gone through a whole bunch of stuff and pulled into the reserves because you've been more active this last year. And so if you use this last year as an example, it's not going to work because you've been a lot more active. And so you're going to have to be a little more picking and choosing with regard to kind of what you're doing. In other words, you can probably do it in a single meeting, but you may end up with a long meeting. So, but you need a meeting in July. Make sure you need to get that done and over with in July so that in August you've got your stuff and the council can final up their stuff so that in September you can pass the budgets. So that's basically what I'm saying. If you want to do it as I've seen you guys, this particular body in the past has had a couple of special budget workshops at different times. But most of the time, especially when you weren't very active, you were able to do it in your regular meeting, but there wasn't a lot to talk about at that point. So it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to set it that you're going to talk about the budget in your July regular meeting, that's fine. It just depends on how many other things you're going to tag on to your agenda at that meeting. So, but let me recommend that Jeff and I talk when Janice gets back, and we send out this year's budget to you so you can kind of see what's there, and a proposed second budget sometime shortly after, and then you guys can decide if you can get it done at your regular meeting in July or if you need a special meeting in July. How's that sound?
Sure.
I'll go ahead and voice my preference that we try and squeeze it into one meeting if at all possible.
Yeah, and if we want to commit to having a lighter agenda in July, I'm totally fine with that too. Maybe try to eliminate presentations, right?
Yeah. Okay. And Jeff, is that doable on your side? Okay.
So, Mr. Henry and Jeff, what I said, does that make any sense at all, or does that just really mess up everything? Where if they had an idea going into the new year,
No,
what might
that does flow in line with how it is supposed to work. It just depends on kind of what they're doing and what you're doing, what the wish list ends up being that they're allowed to do. But no, I understand what you're saying, and it does fall in line with what they can do.
Because I never could figure out how they did their budget when we show up later on and say, could you do this for us, or could you do that for us?
They amend it.
They didn't know about it.
They amend it.
So, and then one of the other things is everybody's allowed to come to our budget meeting.
Right.
So if one person or all of y'all want to come and make notes, okay, they're asking this, this, and this, then y'all kind of have an idea.
Yeah, and then we'll be ready for our July meeting. Awesome. Well, it sounds like we have a plan. So are we good to adjourn at 7:32?
Yeah, you can.